My friends, let's talk about what happens after silence. You've been in no contact. You've done the hardest part, stepping back, not chasing, not begging, not filling the silence just to feel better. And that takes strength most people underestimate. The no contact rule isn't about playing games. It's about regaining power, emotional power, mental clarity, the kind that gets buried when you're constantly wrapped up in someone else's presence, responses, or lack thereof. Most people misunderstand no contact. They think it's a trick to make someone miss you. They go into it like it's a countdown. If I disappear for X days, he'll come running back. And that mindset defeats the purpose. No contact works not because it changes them. It works because it changes you. You finally get out of the emotional fog, the mental loop of checking your phone, rereading messages, or overanalyzing their last words. You step off that roller coaster, and for the first time in a long time, you can hear yourself think again. When you're in a relationship or an emotional attachment that's become imbalanced, you lose perspective. You start adapting to crumbs. You twist yourself trying to be what they want. You base your self-worth on how much attention they give you on any given day. No contact breaks that cycle. It's a pattern interrupt. It's a signal to your brain and your heart that you matter again. You're not just waiting, you're working, you're healing. You're rebuilding your sense of identity that got blurred in the chase, in the overgiving, in the maybe if I try harder mindset. And slowly you start remembering things about yourself that got pushed to the side, your hobbies, your goals, your voice. And here's something powerful. No contact forces the other person to sit with the void. They don't get the usual comfort of knowing you'll always be there. They don't get the emotional validation you are giving for free. Suddenly, they're left with silence. And in that silence, they either confront what they've lost or they don't. But either way, it tells you something important. It tells you whether this person values you enough to step out, to meet you halfway, to grow. And if they don't, then their silence becomes your clarity. No contact is the opposite of desperation. It's a move made from strength, not weakness. It's not passive, it's active. It's a statement, I choose myself, even if it means losing you. And that's where transformation begins. Because when you can sit in the discomfort of that choice and not run back to soothe the tension, you gain emotional muscle, you build resilience, you teach yourself that your peace matters more than temporary relief, more than a half-hearted text, more than crumbs disguised as love. And here's the irony. When you truly let go, when you release the need to control the outcome, that's often when things shift. Maybe they come back, maybe they don't. But either way, you're in a better place because you're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And from that place, whether you reconnect or walk away forever, you do it from power, not pain, from clarity, not confusion. That is the real power of no contact. It's not silence for silence's sake. It's a reset, a reclamation. It's where your real glow up begins, not just on the outside, but in how you carry yourself, in what you'll now accept, and in how deeply you know your worth. Because when you learn to be okay without them, only then are you truly ready for someone who adds to your life, not defines it. Want the next keynote expanded to, most people mess up no contact not by breaking it, but by breaking it the wrong way. There's this belief that after a certain amount of time in silence, you've earned the right to reach out, and the other person should be ready and waiting. But emotional timing doesn't work like that. And if your re-entry is coming from a place of desperation, anxiety, or longing, it shows. The mistake is thinking that silence alone will fix the dynamic. That after a few weeks or a month of no contact, the other person has been sitting there reflecting deeply, missing you, and is now fully ready to come back into something healthy and committed. And maybe they have been thinking, but they're also human, with their own defenses, distractions, and patterns. If your first message is emotionally charged, something like, "I've been thinking about you nonstop," or "I can't do this anymore, I just need to talk to you," you lose your power in seconds, because now you've made the silence about them. You've handed the steering wheel right back. The other big mistake? Making it too heavy too fast. After weeks of silence, if your first move is a long, emotionally detailed message, you're skipping a key step. Rebuilding curiosity. You're not giving space for a natural rhythm to return. Instead, you're trying to shortcut connection by throwing emotional weight at them. That usually doesn't work. It can feel overwhelming, manipulative even, no matter how sincere your intentions are. And let's not forget the hopeful trap messages. These are the ones that say something like, "Hey, I know we haven't talked, but I just wanted to say I miss you. Do you ever think about me?" These messages might feel honest in the moment, but they put all the power in the other person's hands. You're giving them the emotional upper hand without knowing where they stand, and often without knowing where you stand either. Another common mistake is pretending nothing happened, acting like everything is normal as if weeks of no contact didn't exist. Sending a message like, "Hey, saw something that reminded me of you," without acknowledging the gap can feel disingenuous. It's too casual without being grounded in emotional truth. The right message balances lightness with intentionality. But more than the message itself, it's the energy behind it that matters. If your energy is still seeking validation, if you're looking for a specific reaction, a certain response, you're not really ready to break no contact. Because the point of that time apart was to detach your sense of worth from their behavior. If you break the silence with expectations still attached, you haven't fully done the work. You're not re-entering the conversation, you're testing the water with fear disguised as hope. What most people don't realize is this: how you break no contact reveals everything. It shows whether you've grown or just waited, whether you've healed or just paused. And it communicates far more than the words you send. When you break it the wrong way, you're essentially saying, "I didn't really learn anything in the silence. I'm still trying to get something from you." Most people assume that the only way to reconnect after no contact is to dive straight into vulnerability, to open their heart, express their feelings, and hope it lands the right way. But that approach is not only predictable, it's emotionally risky. The move he won't expect isn't some grand emotional gesture. It's you re-entering from a place of emotional independence, not emotional need. When you've been silent for a while, the expectation, whether conscious or not, is that your first message will come loaded with emotion, that you'll either lash out, beg for attention, or pour your heart out in a way that says, "Please tell me you've missed me too." But that's not power. That's performance for validation. And even if it comes from a sincere place, it can still feel like pressure to the other person. This isn't about manipulation. It's about genuine transformation. You're not pretending to be okay. You are okay. And when that energy leads the way, it becomes safe and even interesting for the other person to interact with you again. There's something incredibly powerful about reaching out, not because you need a response, but because you're open to connection without attachment. That's the difference. You're not there to demand an outcome. You're there to reflect who you've become and to create space, not pressure, for whatever comes next. Re-entry from power isn't about not caring. It's about not needing. It's about choosing to connect from fullness, not emptiness, from curiosity, not expectation. That's what he won't expect. He'll expect emotion, chaos, maybe even drama. He won't expect someone who feels completely at peace, who knows their value, and who's not trying to prove anything. That's the energy shift that changes the dynamic. You're not chasing, you're not over-explaining, you're just showing up calm and unshaken. And in a world full of people reacting from emotion, that presence hits different. And when it comes to reconnecting after no contact, most people overlook one of the most powerful tools they have: curiosity. They focus so much on expressing themselves, on being, on making their feelings known, that they forget the subtle strength in emotional contrast and the art of sparking someone's interest without overwhelming them. Curiosity is magnetic because it invites someone in rather than pushing them to respond. It's not about being vague or manipulative. It's about creating a space where the other person naturally leans forward, wonders what you've been up to, and starts to feel a pull toward you without even knowing why. This starts with contrast. If the last time they saw you, you were emotional, confused, or hurt, and now you show up calm, light, even slightly playful, that emotional shift is striking. And the human mind notices contrast. It gets curious when something no longer fits the pattern it remembers. Wait, she's not upset anymore. He's not chasing like he used to. They seem different. Without you having to say much at all, you've already made an impact. Because now you're not trying to convince them of your growth, you're showing it through your energy and behavior. That's what builds intrigue. That's what opens the door for real engagement. The biggest mistake people make is thinking they need to spell everything out. I've changed. I've done the work. I'm not the same person. But if you have to say it, there's already a part of you trying to prove it. And proof-seeking energy isn't attractive. It's needy. But when you carry yourself with self-assurance, when your words and actions align with the version of you that's grown, people feel that. They feel the contrast without you needing to explain it. The right kind of message after no contact taps into this. It's not heavy, it's not emotional, it's unexpected in how light it is. It might be a question about something specific you know they care about. It might be a comment on something recent and relevant, something that shows attentiveness without sounding like you've been watching them. It's a moment that invites engagement without demanding it. Why is this so effective? Because it creates space, emotional space. You're not pushing for a reunion, a conversation, or an answer. You're simply opening a door, and the lack of pressure makes walking through it feel safe. That's what makes someone want to reply. Not obligation, not guilt, not emotional weight, but genuine curiosity. The key is to keep that energy going. No sudden emotional detours. No, I've missed you so much right out of the gate. Stay present. Let the connection unfold naturally. Let them feel your stability, your ease, your grounded presence. That becomes the contrast to the last version of you they remember. And that contrast, without force, without explanation, becomes the thing that gets them thinking about you differently. Curiosity and contrast are powerful, not because they manipulate, but because they reframe. They shift the emotional landscape. And when you can reintroduce yourself from a place of quiet confidence, when you no longer act from a place of wanting to be chosen, but simply from a desire to connect on equal ground, that subtle shift says everything. So instead of leading with emotional intensity, lead with presence. Instead of trying to stir up nostalgia or force connection, invite curiosity. Let them wonder. Let them feel the change, not be told about it. Because when they feel something different from you and they don't know exactly what it is, that's when they start leaning in. And that's when real momentum can begin. Growth doesn't need to be announced, it should be felt. And one of the most impactful ways to reconnect after no contact is to let your transformation speak for itself. Not through speeches, not through emotional confessions, but through the way you carry yourself, the way you communicate, the way you respond or don't respond to certain things. This is where most people go wrong. They want to come back and explain everything. I've changed. I'm different now. I've learned my lesson. But here's the thing. Real change doesn't beg to be acknowledged. It simply shows up differently. It behaves differently. It sets new standards. That's what gets noticed. And often it's noticed far more deeply when it's not spelled out. Imagine this. The last time you interacted, maybe you were reactive. Maybe you were anxious, emotional, or trying too hard. And now you return, not with grand declarations, but with calm, with grace, with self-respect. Suddenly, your energy isn't the same. You don't respond to bait. You don't chase conversations. You don't emotionally overinvest in breadcrumbs. And that shift, it's powerful. Because what you're showing is that you no longer operate from fear or insecurity. You're not afraid of silence anymore. You're not in a rush to fill the gap. And when the other person expects a certain emotional dynamic from you, and instead they're met with stillness, with maturity, with light-hearted strength, it interrupts everything they thought they knew about you. This is the power of show, don't tell. You don't need to convince someone you're in a better place. When you really are, it becomes clear. In your boundaries, in the tone of your messages, in the timing of your replies, in your ability to hold space without rushing to control the direction of the conversation. Instead of diving into emotional discussions or asking what went wrong, you keep things light and centered on the present. You're warm, but you're not trying too hard. You're engaging, but not over-explaining. You're interested, but not dependent on the outcome. This calm confidence creates a sense of ease, and that is what draws people in. And if they bring up the past, you don't deflect it, but you also don't use it as a platform to try and redeem yourself. You speak to it from a place of perspective, not pain. You might, I've reflected on a lot and I've grown a lot since then. Full stop. You don't need to perform your growth. You simply own it. The version of you that emerges from no contact should be grounded, focused, not trying to be impressive, just being. You're not chasing connection. You're attracting alignment. And the people meant for you will recognize that energy, not because you told them you've grown, but because you showed up as someone who clearly has. There's a moment that often gets overlooked after no contact, the moment after you reinitiate. Everyone focuses so much on how to break the silence, how to make the first move, how to craft that perfect message, but they forget that what happens next is just as important, if not more. Because this is where the real test begins. This is where your follow-through matters. And this is where most people fall right back into old habits, undoing all the growth they just worked for. Reaching out from a grounded place is only part of the equation. What determines the success of this move is how you handle their response, or their lack of it. If you break no contact and get a neutral, delayed, or even non-existent reply, what do you do with that space, that silence? Do you panic and follow up too quickly? Do you read into every word they say? Do you fall into old emotional loops just because they've re-entered your world? Or do you stay centered? Do you hold your emotional ground? The real power lies in how you navigate the days after that first move. Because here's the truth. Emotional stability is rare. Most people swing between extremes, either over-investing the second someone responds or shutting down completely if things don't go as hoped. But what really leaves a lasting impression is consistency, not emotional intensity, not forced conversations, just a steady, grounded presence that isn't reactive. Don't rush to escalate it into a long heart-to-heart. Don't overinterpret it. Just be present, be human, match the tone and energy without pushing an agenda. Let the rhythm of the conversation build naturally. People need to feel like they're engaging with someone who isn't holding emotional scorecards or chasing a fantasy of reconciliation. If the conversation picks up, amazing, but keep your standards. Don't fall into the trap of accepting the same patterns that made you walk away in the first place. Reconnection should never mean regression. It's not about getting back to where you were. It's about seeing if you can start something better. something new. And that can only happen if you're still operating from your evolved self. If they don't reply or if their energy is off, don't collapse emotionally. That's not reflection of your worth. You didn't break no contact to get a result. You did it because you had something to offer from a strong place. And strength means handling rejection or indifference without letting it shake your foundation. You've already done the hard work of stepping into your power. Don't hand it back just because you didn't get the outcome you hoped for. This phase is where your new standard either solidifies or crumbles. It's where you get to prove to yourself that you're no longer the person who needs to chase, over-explain, or settle. You're the person who can hold a connection lightly, who can participate without attachment, who can be warm without being walked over. Let your post-contact actions reflect your self-respect. Give space. Let them invest too. Don't rush into proving anything. You've already shown enough just by the energy you've brought. And if they start matching that energy, amazing. Now you have something to build on. But if they don't, you're already whole without it. Because in the end, the power move isn't just in how you return. It's in how you stay or how you walk away again if you need to. This time, not from pain, but from peace. Not from confusion, but from clarity. That's the kind of power they don't expect. And that's what leaves a lasting impact. The move he won't expect isn't dramatic, it isn't loud. It isn't about pouring your heart out or proving your worth. It's subtle, calm, and deeply rooted in a version of you that no longer operates from need. The power lies in your restraint, in your growth, in your ability to re-enter without losing yourself. This speech hasn't been about getting someone back. It's been about getting you back. Reconnection isn't the goal. Reconnection is just an option. The real goal is to become the kind of person who doesn't chase closure, who doesn't depend on someone else's reaction to feel whole, and who leads with self-respect, not fear. If you choose to break no contact, let be a move from strength, not from a craving for reassurance. Let your energy do the talking. Let your calm create contrast. Let your growth be felt, not forced. And most of all, let your actions reflect your standards, not your hopes. Because the version of you who knows their value, that's the version they don't see coming. That's the one who doesn't just reappear, they return on their own terms. And whether or not they respond, whether or not it leads somewhere, that version of you never walks away empty-handed. You walk away proud, clear, whole, and that's the win that no one can take from you.